I want to start off by introducing Steve Snow. And I didn't realize he's been in business longer than me. I've been in business 46 years. And he's younger than me, so this guy must have started playing with. He runs a place in Saginaw called Dynamic Corvettes. I'm sure many of you have done business with him. I've bought parts from him over the years. I thought his topic here, I thought it's apropos because now the club is kind of loosening up on the originality stuff, and they've got a class they call Concours Judging, and they are accepting modified cars. Oh, I should never call it that with Mr. Brigham still at the helm. But, so, Steve Snow.
So I guess I'm here to tell my story. My story started out in 1972. I was a senior in high school. And back then it was really big in the automotive part of the schools to teach auto body and mechanical shops. And so I took both the auto body and the mechanical shop. And my body shop teacher came in after about a month of my senior year and said to me he had a buddy that owned a Corvette shop looking for someone to sweep the floors. He says, "You're my first pick if you're interested in the job." And so I went, got the job, and enjoyed it. I had to give up the Fords that I had, got deep into the Corvette stuff, and the place was called the Vet Center in Kalamazoo. Jim Downs owned the place, and Larry Spitters. Learned a lot, and there was one day that I was trying to keep one of them happy doing a job, and the other one came wanted me to do something for him, and then the other one came back and started chewing on me for not doing what he told me to do, and so I told them both to take a leap. I had enough trying to keep them both happy, and I ended up going in the Army because I really felt that I wanted to operate heavy equipment. Took a little position in Colorado Springs. We had a new CO pull in driving a green 72 convertible. And I made sure he found out I knew a little bit about Corvettes, and he found out that I had a little shop to supplement my income. And so he said, "Kid, I just did 3 tours in Vietnam. I got a bag full of money. Let's buy some Corvettes and fix them up and we'll split the profits." So I did that for about 18 months of my 36 months in the Army, more than I did the Army, which was kind of fun. I came back to Michigan and I had the thought of getting a job operating heavy equipment, but it was November when I went in, so it was November when I got out. There's no jobs operating heavy equipment in Michigan in November, so I went back to that Corvette shop. And about 2 years later, I bought that Corvette shop at about 23, 24. Took me approximately 18 to 20 months to destroy that Corvette shop because I thought I could screw off and ride my motorcycle and work from 10 to 4 or whenever I got tired of working, and found out it didn't work that way. Started over again. In Saginaw, I always liked customizing. I always liked changing the car, getting my head beat up by some folks that you might know for doing what I did. But I still kept doing it. And about 10 years ago, I went to Carlisle and walked up to a C1 that had been modified with a LS motor in it, I believe, or maybe it wasn't even LS at that time. But it was a C5 or C6 interior in there, and talking to the guy that built the car, and he started referring to resto mods. And so I started looking more at resto mods and seeing how they were being accepted. You know, guys were going after the resto mod. They wanted it to be a better driving car, air conditioning, just everything about it. So I really started focusing on that. And so this is the beginning of the resto mods. This gentleman came to us and wanted us to resurrect this race car that he had. But he wanted an L88 hood and flares that looked like the original quarter panels and fenders, but to come out about 1.5 inches. And so we took the job on, and I explained to him, I said, when you modify something like this, the right way to do it is to retool what you made and then make a new part of that new tool and put it on the car. And so there's a couple more shots going through there. That's just the new tooling getting sprayed with the gel coat. One of the front ends that we made for this car. And go ahead again. And so here's the next year that we came back to Autorama with the 69. And that's the 69, and Kathy and Melanie with her hood she can't hardly see over the top of, but we saw a lot of those hoods for the C3 versions. Go ahead. That's one of our customers sitting in our 57XL that we make. That 57XL has over 40 inches of modifications done to that car. And where we started was in the cockpit. Large fellow like myself, I can fit in that car and look out the middle of the windshield, not over the top of it. Because we designed a new frame and we have the roaster shop build that frame for us. We designed it on the perimeter style frame that the C2 and C3 is built out of. So the seat sits down inside of the frame, and so our floor pan is down level across with the frame. So we get clearance there and forward. So we can go on to the next one. That's a customer sitting in a 58 that he brought us with the floor already dropped. And this is Tyler with our gang mold that we made for the eyebrows and the grill moldings for the C1. Everything that we make, we try to build a flange that goes around the outside perimeter of the part so we can infuse it. For an example, like this front spoiler is an infused part. And so the mold is there with a 6-inch flange around it. We put our dry product into the mold after we gel coated it. Then we have a bag that goes over it and a seal that goes around the outer perimeter of it. And then right in the middle is where you introduce the resin to it. And so then that resin is pulled in here, makes the part 25% stronger, makes it 25% lighter, and the emissions going into our world is cut down to almost zero versus the open mold process. So we're trying to take as much as we can and do in the closed mold process versus the open mold. And there's one of our XL hoods. We took the 57 Stinger, and all of our hoods, it's kind of a trademark, are finished on the back side. So when you look at one of our hoods, all of our hoods are finished on the back side.
Cool. Very cool.
And we've been designing different actuators to open the hoods. We're hiding the actuators now so you can't see them, which is just taking it that extra step. The customizing part of it, to be able to have, I guess, because the resto mod is coming on so strong, and the value of one and what so many folks are doing to them, it's just it's a gigantic market for us. And so this is the 69 coming back again, just showing a couple of the awards he put up there. So we're located in Saginaw, 3 generations underneath our roof, and our focus is designing and building quality custom parts. And our new products, we're usually coming out with a new product on the average about every 2 to 4 weeks to keep creating something new. And so this is the bottom of the 58 or the 62 that we're doing, XL floor. Our mold without a part in it. This is our C1 XL floor. We've designed this floor to drop approximately 2 inches from the original floor. Footwell's moved forward, seat can come back a little bit more. Accommodates big tubs for big tires and still have a convertible top. We had to have a floor. We made our floor from scratch. The bottom side of the floor was finished off. So in turn, when we made our mold, this is the bottom side. This is the top side of our mold, but it's the bottom side of your part. So the bottom side of our plug, which was our floor, we brought to a Class A finish. And also in turn with this, we've built a perimeter flange around this to infuse it. So if we choose to infuse this part, we can infuse this part. Just wanted to kind of show you, the parts are shiny because the mold's shiny. The only way you get the mold shiny is a lot of hard dedication and a lot of hard work. If you don't have that dedication and that passion, it doesn't turn out like this. This is the bottom of our floor that you're going to see on the bottom of that car when you're done. So the floor is dropped down approximately 2 inches. We move the seat back, and if you go into the front of the compartment here, the footwell, you see the original floor that's still to the far left. Our floor is 2 inches past that, so it gives you more foot room. But in turn, with the seat coming back, we moved the waterfall back. So our waterfall is moved back 1.5 inches. So everything on the deck lid is moved back 1.5 inches, and we still take factory moldings on top of it. And so with our deck lid, the modifications, we've cut out some of the inside of the deck lid to get our convertible top still to fit in the car. So we've raised our convertible top up an inch, which created a lot of redesigning of how the top folded down inside of the car. Waterfall's back, top is up. Now if you look inside of here, you'll see the new panels. And we come around to the back of the car. This is the inside of our trunk. And so if you look at that tub, we got a 12-inch tub in the back of this car. So now you can have a big tire, still keep a convertible top. The inside of our trunk lid, we've taken all the X bracing out, and so now we've made a new skin on the inside of the trunk. So it'll be bonded like our hoods, and the inside will be completely finished. Cooler and or 2 sets of golf clubs, depends on what you want to do. And if you stand back, you'll notice this is an original body 62 that we're making the modifications in. Thanks for watching. You can see the size of that floor, like I said, from the firewall all the way back to the rear taillight panel for the most part. And it gives you plenty of room inside of the trunk area to put golf clubs. The one guy that we're building a car for, the 62, wants 2 sets of golf clubs in the car. And so there's 12-inch tubs in that car and a convertible top. If you go to our YouTube, I believe we're a little over 400 videos of how to install our parts, how to put on what we're selling, to help somebody to decide if they want to venture out and do the job, and they can see it, how it's done, explain how it's done. And if you have an issue when you're putting something on, you can go back to that video. And so the next thing we're showing here is some of our custom parts that we're making that we have chrome plated. This bumper up here is a fiberglass bumper that's chrome plated. We have a company that we found after venturing for about 2 years. They don't want different people sending them the chrome plating. They want me to send them the chrome plating. And the problem with that is every one of these cars, as you know, are a little bit different. So before, when you're building a car, for an example, here's one of our mid-year rear bumpers. Every bumper should be fitted to a car. Everything should be fitted to a car when you're building it. Okay, it's just like doing regular restoration work. When you're building a car, fit everything to it while you're doing the body work. Don't assume that anything is going to fit without fitting it. And with being fiberglass, so if you got to massage it a little bit or do something to it, these are made to be tucked in tight. So there's roughly 1/8 of an inch of a gap around this bumper where it fits on the car. And you can see the back side is completely enclosed because that's how we pretty much decided to make this, to make it functional. It bolts into the factory bolts. But it's important. It's just like in the restoration. We go through 3 sets of weather strips on a car when we're building a car. We put the weather strips on the doors, we hang the doors after the hinges are built, and then we do our body work. We take it apart and do our first polyester primer. After we've taken the weather strips off, we sand our jambs, we put another set of new weather strips on so it fits the same, and refit everything until we're done. We'll go through 3 sets of weather strips and building a car. So that's the same thing with a part. You need to fit every part. And probably the biggest problem we have is selling somebody a hood. We don't like selling anybody a hood to a car that's already done, because hoods are a pain in the ass. Every one of these cars are different, and everyone's been put back together a little different than how the next guy thinks, and sometimes they're put back together by people that don't have a lot of knowledge. And a hood, they can make the one fit, but if there was problems with that hood, and now you try to put a new hood on, for an example, when we build a new part like a hood, we'll fit 3 cars with that hood to make sure we have the average from all 3 of those cars. We don't assume on any of it. We have made a fixture for our mid-year front ends, so we can still tool new hoods off of that. And that front end was made with all OEM glass put together. We've tooled off that front end, and we're moving forward on that now. So that's just showing some of the chrome plating. Some of the little things like the headlight bezels right there, you don't see any exterior fasteners on it. Everything's put on the back side of that, so the fasteners. This is a custom world, so we can do that. And so if something to me in my eye, thinks that it should be a little bit different, we're going to make it a little bit different. You can see our top fender molding. It's one piece that wraps all the way to the headlight bezel. It's a little bit bigger completely from one end to the other because I thought it was a little too small, so I made it a little bit bigger. But it's kind of the world. I'm driving that bus, so I get to do that, okay? and so that's the fun part, to create it. And the way that we made that mold, that's another part that we can infuse, making carbon fiber or chrome plate it, or if somebody wants to paint it the same color of their car. And so that's the rear bumper on the 62 that we're doing right now. And you can see how nice that bumper fits the car. That's one of our front clips with the LED flares that are made in it. And when we design that, we can take that mold and only make the front fenders. If somebody wants the front fenders, we've done the same on the back of the car. And so how we build it, it's better. Okay, vinyl ester resin. I want to talk a little bit about vinyl ester resin. Vinyl ester resin is what everybody in the industry uses in the fiberglass world to make tooling, to make their molds. Vinyl ester resin won't shrink like standard polyester resin does. And so in doing everything, my thoughts were, God, if this vinyl ester resin is so great, why don't we use it for parts? Well, the problem with vinyl ester resin, it's double the price for a drum as production resin. But to me, that's okay because it makes for a better part. And so everything that we make is made in vinyl ester. No chopper guns, everything's hand done. Everything that we build in-house. We don't farm anything out. And the innovation of building something new, this is showing a 63 style hood that we built for a split window that had a LT4 in it. We had to bring the engine up just a little bit, which interfered with the original hood. So everything snowballs as it usually does. And so we took the Stinger from a 67 and downsized the Stinger, made it a little bit narrower. But in order to put that Stinger on there, we also had to make the 8-crate area a little bit smaller. But today with the talent that's out there for CNC machines, those 8 crates could be made out of aluminum. We tool and make them. They can be made in carbon fiber. It could be chrome plated as well.
This is our 63 hood modified and combined with the Stinger hood. So it has the opening for the plate grills for the 63, but they're shortened so that they fit on the hood with the Stinger. So we have a Stinger 63.
We made a combination of the 63 with the cookie sheets. We've downsized them, and we downsized our Stinger hood. When we bond our hoods, they're bonded in the process of building it. We've already installed the hardware, and we build the 2 halves, and we bond them in the molds, and they don't come out of the molds until they're completely done. We'll have a little flash to take off, and we're done with it. Right now, this is what we've created on YouTube. Our YouTube is watched 721 hours a month. So somebody is watching our videos constantly. And by the way, we're only concentrating on the first 3 generations. The rest of them, to me, don't exist right now because we're trying to accomplish what I want to do, and that's more of the first 3 generations. Go to the next one. Install of our C2 front end. First and foremost is make sure the car has a rough end alignment. You got to keep the core support locked in. It's going to control the hood hinges, which the hood hinges control the latches. And so he's made these prop rods up, something pretty simple, some threaded rod, a little bit of conduit, some washers and some nuts, so you can move the core support forwards and backwards. We're going to do this front end in segments. The first segment that's going to get bonded is call section. And then we're going to come back and we're going to pick the car up, take tires and wheels off then. We can get in there, we're going to bond in our top and rear of our inner fenders. And then at that time we'll bond in the hood surround to the hood so we can adjust this up or down if need be. And then the final step after the inner fenders are done, then we'll do the side fenders. There. Weather strips are on the doors. He's got a paint stick going underneath the door and a clamp. See, no screws. We don't screw it up, we glue it up. And now we're going to pull our clamps off of here and pick the front end up just enough to get in there and spread our epoxy across the call section. We're going to glue the front of the inner fenders, the upper hood surround, and the upper part of the inner fender. Once that kicks off, it's not going to go anywhere. We're back for the second phase of the second day. We have this little fixture here holding everything in place. We're going to take this fixture off. That's out of our way. We're going to leave our sticks in there that's holding our fender just right. Now we're going to do our final fit of our side fender. We've already been fitting this, as you remember in the beginning. So we're just out a little bit here on the bottom. We're going to take the fender back off. So you got a nice gap there. We got our tires on. Lines up. Now we're going to come back with our epoxy that's in this seam and put it down inside that seam good. Now is what we're going to do is come back in here and cut our door gap the way we want it, knock down our bonding material here, come back and backfill this for a backfill, final backfill, and fill in our gap to our doors. We finish roughing that up, we tape it off. So once we spread it, we pull our tape, backfill our voids with our epoxy. It's finished spreading the epoxy, now you pulls this tape off and you're all set. 3D scanning. So a couple years ago, I'm saying to myself, how do I replace me? Okay, how do I replace these 10 fingers? And so I started looking at equipment. We purchased a scanner, go ahead. So in that scanner is you have to have the program to run it. We have Rhino, so we can morph in 2 hoods together. Putting that 67 Stinger hood, morphing it into a C3 hood. And so we went with our scanning, our programs, to a 3D printer. That 3D printer, the video is showing it, which you can go see all of this on our YouTube. That 3D printer is the size of that table. It's a small printer, but it's big for us, okay? That's showing where we printed the flange that we're putting around, and that's our C1 dash right now. You can see on the back side the black flange that we're making out of fiberglass. We took that dash and we scanned it, and we took the scan data and designed our dam. And so now we printed that flange to go on that dash, and that would have probably been a good 4 hours worth of labor from a human to cut all those pieces and put that part of that puzzle together. So you put that program into that printer and you go home. So our next step was a plasma table. And a lot of the things we're doing, we need brackets. We tried a couple different shops to make them for us, and we were always waiting. Well, now we have that 3D operated plasma table that we're getting ready to convert into a router table. So now we can router out a piece of foam, wood, plastic, aluminum, something that will help us make sure that the left side is perfect to the right side because of the human error is taken out of the picture. That scanning and that program's designing that, and that table's going to cut it out for us. And so the future, we're not done by any means of making custom parts because there's more that we want to make. But over the last 10 years or so, watching the press molded market and how long folks are waiting for press molded parts, we've already tooled almost all of the 63-7 car for press molded. So that's our version of a press molded part. The only problem with our press molded versus everybody else's is a Class A finish, okay? But the Class A finish is important to me. The press molded parts will be made in the 3 different colors for the original of the car. The outside of it, the shine to me is showing the quality of the part. It's better for our molds. Our molds will last longer. The average life of a mold in the industry is said to last anywhere from 1,000 parts to 10 years. I'm intrigued by that press molded now. So next slide. That's our 63 roof panel. That roof panel, we found a set of molds from a company that was in business like 20 years ago. The guy that owned the molds came and tried to sell me the molds. I looked at the pictures of those molds, and I could see there was a split window roof mold sitting there with a gray panel in it. And so Kathy and I drove down to Ohio, and we looked at the molds, and there was an original GM roof panel in that mold. I only tool off original GM parts if we're making a press molded part. I will not tool off someone else's part. We put the deal together, and I came home with that roof panel. That right there is our front end for the mid-year that we've made. We've made that a one-piece front end minus the side fenders. You attach the side fenders after you've glued the front end on the car. The only thing we don't have to make press molded parts right now is a jig to put the front end together. So that is ready to be gelled tomorrow morning, and that's the beginning of our jig to be able to assemble a front end after we've made that front end. Because everybody wants them assembled. To me, I think it's almost easier to put it on in pieces, but that's everyone's different onto that part of it. And so in the video showing how to do our front end, it gives you some really good suggestions on how we do it in steps. We'll take 2 to 3 days to glue a front end on, and when everything that we glue with is all epoxies. And so we're a firm believer in epoxy. You can go to the last slide. Thank you.